Welcome back to the Ride and Laugh podcast. If you love mountain biking, you are in the right place. Picture your last group ride. You're back at the parking lot. Everyone's stoked. You're talking about trails. You're talking about tech. You're talking about progression. You're talking about body position and all the good things that just happened on the last ride. That's what we do here every week on the Ride and Laugh podcast. You love mountain biking. We love mountain biking. Let's drop in. Sage, how are you?
Dan, I am doing so good. I got good news. We hit
I like this.
over 2,000 downloads on the podcast.
Wow.
I know.
Awesome.
Unbelievable. I think we're actually at like 2,100 downloads. I mean, it's just, I got to tell you, I'm so excited that this is being so well received. I mean, you and I have a good time, but we didn't know. Yeah, you and I have a great time, but we didn't know how that would like translate, going out. But
well, I'm not surprised because oftentimes we're at the diner and we're talking after our ride and we're talking about bikes.
Yes.
And we just have like strangers coming over to us and overhearing us and being like, oh, I used to ride a bike, or, I couldn't help but hear you guys talk about this. So, I was like, there's an audience for this. I mean, that's a very, very poor and small sample size, but
yeah,
nonetheless. Everyone, thank you for listening and telling your friends and downloading. That's awesome. Yeah, it's really, really exciting. And we're just super flattered, and we're going to keep going. As long as people are listening, we're going to keep going. So like and comment, subscribe. Absolutely.
Now, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm busy. I'm busy as heck. The work-life balance. We almost did a pod this week on work-life balance, and I don't know if I'm qualified this week because I'm juggling it. But I keep my vibe high and talking to my homie now about mountain biking. And listener, you're listening about mountain biking, so we got an hour of bike talk, and we are going to be focusing on getting to be better riders. We talk about a lot of different subjects here on Ride and Laugh, and there's so many in the mountain bike world. There's just so much cool stuff to discuss and debate, and those episodes have been really fun. But I also like the episode where the listener can, especially if they're on their way to the trails or they're going to ride later this week, maybe get a couple of pointers.
Yeah.
But before we do that, we want to talk about our listener comments of the week.
Yes.
And we will be talking about the last podcast, which was number 14. And that was on Strava, the app we love to hate. And then there was two Ride and Laugh Hot Take YouTube videos, which again, everyone, if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, if you're just listening, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, turn on your notification bells, because Sage puts together these, I said 3 to 5, but they're really more like 3 to 10 minute videos, and they're excerpts. Yeah. And they're a little bit different than the YouTube video if you watch it live. Yeah. But it's a good little excerpt, and then they have their own set of comments also. So those two were, do calm hunting and Strava lines hurt mountain biking? And the second hot take is how technology improves mountain biking and builds community. I thought that was a really cool thing that came out of that episode, was your point that a lot of these apps that we were talking about in that episode, and specifically Strava, were building a mountain bike community. And the comments that we got really kind of reinforced that. What was your take on the comments?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm pleasantly surprised that a lot of people tend to agree with us, that the community aspect of all this has just been tremendous. So the growth in the sport, actually, since, we first started, to now knowing so many people. I can't tell you how many people have just come up to me and they're like, hey, I recognize you from here, or I follow you here. And you've gotten the same. And that's just amazing. It's amazing that we're able to take this passion that we have and share it and bring new people in, and it's just, I mean, it's just so awesome, man. I love getting all the comments and the feedback. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like Strava does that. And now for you and I, at least, with the podcast, just sharing the stoke. I mean, that's what it's all about, is just getting people more stoked on riding and sharing the stoke that we have, and other people sharing their stoke. And, we just love mountain biking. We all have this hobby, and sometimes it feels like everything else we're doing in life is fitting around this hobby that we do for a few hours on the weekend, and so you and I are kind of just amplifying that and that part of mountain biking.
You know what else though, Danny? It's we're not approaching this from like a professional or expert standpoint. You know, we're just kind of talking about what works for us. And I think that resonates with people, but I don't know.
You're right. We're not pros. No one's paying us to do this.
Yeah.
And no one's paying us to ride. No one's paying us to record yet. Yes. And we'll take payment in bikes and bike trips, FYI.
Hey, now.
Yes. Or money. Yeah. Or or coffee. What else have we? E-bikes. What else have we thrown out there?
Yeah, right. Seriously.
Yeah. But yeah, no, absolutely. We're a couple of guys that are obviously really good friends, and it's just the love of mountain bikes, and that's really what it is. Like when we're talking about something other than mountain bikes, it's like, all right, let's get back to bikes so that we can, so that we can laugh some more and enjoy it. So, yeah, absolutely. Well, everyone, thank you for listening. And if the podcast is resonating with you, and we've gotten some really nice, awesome comments, and if you started a gratitude journal, or if you're feeling and you're manifesting or you're visualizing and you're starting to get some things that you hadn't gotten before. Now, I actually think I might start manifesting and visualizing the manual. And Sean is really convincing me. Yeah. Anyways, let's move on to the comments of the week. And I'm trying to get an episode where this guy isn't the top commenter of the week. And he's killing me. His comments are so good. Zan at Sploosh MTB.
Yes.
You know, I was like, okay, I can't use him every week. You know, it's getting kind of silly. And then I read what he says and I'm like,
it's too
I gotta
good.
Put that in.
It's too good.
It's too good. So we're talking about Strava and social media, and he's saying that he's using it mainly to see where people are riding, but also what they're riding. Yeah. And I love seeing new bike day, right? People put new bike day, they put pictures of their bike all blinged out. You're like, that looks awesome, you know? And then when you see them in person, you're like, oh, that's the bike. Yeah, that's so cool. Or what do you think about that bike? I'm thinking about buying one of those bikes, or my friend has one of those bikes. And, you know, just geeking out on bikes is so much fun.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the other one, which we didn't talk about, and you and I totally do this, is that in Strava, you put down, there's a place where you can put your equipment. And so when you ride, or even if you have like a new pair of shoes or something like that, you can track these things. But certainly you would put your bikes in there, and then you know how many miles are on your bikes, and you can track how many miles are on a set of new tires. Like you can do all sorts of tracking. And we totally do that. And we didn't mention that. So I thought that was too good to not mention.
Yeah. Way to go, Sploosh.
Just obviously just a very, very intelligent person. The fact that he's listening to the podcast is already, it shows how intelligent listener.
Yes.
Yeah. I got to tell you, 20. Listener, you're in the top 5% of podcast listeners listening to Ride and Laugh, I would say. Top 1%. You need quite the intellect to last all the way through a Ride and Laugh podcast.
That's right.
It's quite a ride. Yeah. It's quite a ride. Ups and downs, smarts and dumbs. That's not a sentence. Okay. Next comment was from Nick Lusky, if I'm saying that right, who is the coach of the Twin Valley mountain bike team in Berks County, 2023 state champs. Kind of a big deal around here.
Yeah, Nick.
So Nick's saying, as a coach from a high school team, and actually I think it was grade 6 to 12. But Strava is really useful to see what their athletes are doing, how they're training in the off season and during even in season. They're able to keep track on what their athletes are up to. And then also comparing times and showing that their coach is kind of a badass rider because he's faster than them on a bunch of the downhills. So,
all right.
I mean,
go ahead, Nick.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
I like it too.
Really interesting point using it from a coaching perspective. I thought that was a really interesting point.
Yeah. Shout out, Nick.
And then we have EM Bikes, who was talking about Strava lines, which are shortcuts created by people trying to be faster in their segment. Yes. And EM Bikes says that in his experience, Strava lines are actually more from lazy riders cutting corners than from actually Strava riders, or Strava holes, as we may call them, trying to be faster on a segment. And he said that they also have a problem with newer riders changing the trails to make them easier, which I think all trail systems, run into that a little bit here and there. Like if you can't ride it, walk it, or learn it how to ride it. I know that's something that's always been a bugaboo for you.
Yeah. Well, for both of us too. I think it's just one of those things where it's like, I don't know, man. I see it a lot at places like WIS where it's like multi-use, it gets a lot of traffic, and something happens. So I'm not talking about logovers, that's obstructions in the trail is something different. While I love a logover, I can understand why, some people would cut that out. Right, right. But we're talking about like, a hard rock feature, or something like that. And it's like, you see someone like move rocks, out of the way or just make a trail going completely around it, Right. And it's like, instead of doing that, let's work on that. Let's work that. Let's add that to your skill set. I remember going to the WIS, and do you remember that one spine move? That it's like ridiculously hard. I mean, it's literally like a rock spine in the middle of it. And a lot of people try and go around it, but the line is actually up the spine. And it's one of those things where one day I just spent 5-10 minutes. And I'm like, I'm going to just keep going at this thing until I can get it. Like, I'm tired of walking this thing. I'm going to get it. And I did, and that's what it takes. That's what it takes.
Yeah, I agree. I think anyone that's probably listening, well, if you're new, then don't change trails to make it easier. Just I would practice. That's something to practice. That's something. But I think if you're listening to this, you're probably down with sessioning and down with practicing different lines. But absolutely, I totally agree. We like difficult trails, so it's a little bit of a bias there. But certainly, you don't want to change the trail. Really, you don't want to change the trail at all. If it's a trail that's been built by someone that knows what they're doing. I know, people don't want their jumps altered. People don't want new jumps added. I mean, you see these things like on Instagram all the time at parks, like whoever's building this, stop. We know what we're doing and you don't. And this is, like it's thrown off trail speed and that sort of thing. So,
yeah.
And then to recap our riding for the week, I only had one outdoor ride. It was at Mount Penn. Again, it's just been raining like nonstop here in the Northeast. We're going to get a break. It's going to stop. We're going to get some nice days. Not this weekend, maybe next weekend. But, gratitude to Mount Penn because it's super rocky. Mount Penn in Reading, Pennsylvania. Awesome place. Check it out. I was coming off of 2 weeks recovery. I took a full week off, which we had talked about on the last podcast. I was just really starting to fade. So I took a full week off where I didn't ride the trainer at all, and I barely worked out. I barely did anything. And then the following week was my trainer road recovery week. So I was back on the bike, but they were very, very easy rides. And I did start strength training and doing that sort of thing again. So it was like a real 2 week recovery. It was, it was very relaxing in that sense. And my life's been busy, so it was a good time to do it. And the first week coming back off that recovery, I felt okay, not great. But the second week on Sunday, I felt really good. Yeah. And to me, that was like, okay, there's something to this. And I think every time we do it, we appreciate it. It's just hard to do it because we like riding so much. So and training and we're kind of addicted to that, to the schedule and just getting up and working hard a little bit. I don't know why I'm so addicted to working out. It's hard, but I feel like I need to do it. So I felt really good. Our buddy Stick, who is also in a band, Former Strangers. Former Strangers is a cover band that's so good they have a cover band. Do you remember that?
It's a cover band of a cover band. Yeah.
Yeah. This cover band has bands that are covering them. So they're awesome. And Stick's the lead singer, and he's fantastic. So if you're in the Northeast, check out Former Strangers and book them for your next party. Yeah, they're a good time. And they play late. And we know this because Stick on Saturday nights gets home like super late and barely gets any sleep. But he loves riding, and he loves riding with us so much that he gets up and he drags his butt to Mount Penn. And he doesn't complain. He's on that bike. We're wheels out at 8:30. And I don't know how he does it. This guy's like 9 years older than us, I think. And he's so strong. He rock and roll, man. And so as usual, Stick just chugging along on that bike on like 2 hours of sleep. I mean, I couldn't do it. I absolutely could not do it. So kudos to him. And speaking of Stick, your bike is still in the shop. You've decided to get it repaired. I was in on that decision because, riding left. And so you decided to take Stick up on his offer to borrow his 2013 Scott 27.5 full suspension bike, and you were just not feeling it. And I think it was a combination of the bike and several other things. But that bike is just old geometry. Nothing you could have done about that. But what was your experience there?
You know what, Danny? The more I think about it,
2013 is a long time ago, bro.
It is. But my Carver is worse in terms of geo, and I ride that thing.
That's true.
Pretty awesome. So I think it was really
set up
more
for
me.
You.
Well, that's true. That's true. It is set up for me. I have that short stem and all that stuff, and the pedals I like, and the seat I like, and all that stuff. So I mean, there is that to it, but I just think it was more me. I'm going through a lot of literally life changing things, and it was one of those things, Danny. And I don't know if our listeners can relate to this, but like I had such a hard week that I needed that ride to be good, and I went into it thinking I needed it to be good. And so when the first thing started going bad, it was like, no, I need this to be good. And then that compounded itself over and over and over. And eventually I called it. I just called it. I was making some really silly mistakes that I just never do. And I was like, you know what, this could be bad. I could end up getting hurt. I'm not having a good time. My vibe was really low, and I was like, you know what? This is probably smart to just call it, and that's what I did. And you and Stick, you guys know that mountain well enough that I didn't feel like you needed me to be there, so I just kind of got you to a location that I knew you both were pretty familiar with, and I DNF'd.
Yeah, you really did. Right after the racing podcast, you DNF'd. You did not finish. Yeah. I was disappointed. I mean, obviously we wanted you to keep going just because we were like, we'll just hang out, but
yeah,
that's the kind of place where you could get hurt if you're not focused and if you're not having fun. You're listening to your intuition, and so you decided to call it. And Stick and I went on to have a very nice rest of the ride.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, it was an interesting experience, and just hearing you kind of explain where you were in the beginning of the ride is really interesting, because when we go into something where with want, what we're putting out is that we want, you wanted the ride to be good, to feel better, and what you got back was more want, which is, I want this to be over. I want to be back in my car. I don't want to ride anymore. You didn't go in thinking I'm going to have a great ride. You went in thinking, this needs to make me feel better.
Yeah. It was really frustrating, Dan.
If you had the energy of, I'm going to have a great ride, this is going to be a great ride, I'm going to have fun, it might have been a little bit different. It's just a little bit of a different approach, but it really changes the energy that we put out and the energy that we get back. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, it's just, it's what, and for all the things that make Mount Penn great, for all the things that we rave about it, if you're having a bad day, it will make your day a lot worse. I mean, there's no, this is not I wouldn't even say this is it's definitely not a beginner place, and it's not even an intermediate. Like, you have to have at least high intermediate to be able to enjoy 90% of the trails that are out there. I mean, there are some gravelly bits here and there, but if you're riding a single track, I mean, it's pretty technical. So, if you're having a bad day, it really accentuates all of your
you better badness. Be on your top 20% game at Mount Penn.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It'll take you down.
You dropped well into the 40s.
Yes, I was. Yep.
Yeah. No, it's just really interesting. Approach has so much to do with it, and how what we do when we wake up in the morning and how we feel. And so, when you're having a bad day, and you're in the emotional pain cave. We all know the pain cave on the bike or on the trainer or on the road, when you're climbing up a hill and it's just like, and you want to get through it, and it hurts, and you're doing intervals. That's a physical pain cave, right? And there's also, we can talk about getting through the mental aspect of getting through that sort of pain also, because enjoying a good technical climb also means understanding and managing the pain cave, maybe even embracing it. Yeah. But when we're in the emotional pain cave, the key that I found of moving out of that and just starting to raise our vibration a little bit is appreciation. and gratitude. And that's what we talk about, the gratitude journal, right? And
That's
because
right. That's
it's
right.
impossible to be angry and also appreciative at the same time. We can't really balance two emotions. And so we get to the place where we start to evolve a little bit. We see, okay, I don't like this feeling. I don't feel like this feeling is going to be good for my day. It's not going to be bringing me good things. So find something to appreciate. And it can be something really small, and on the mountain bike, it can just be like, hey, I got this bike and I'm out with my friends, or these shoes are really comfortable, or it's a nice day, or that tree is beautiful. Just any little thing to break the cycle of incessant thoughts on how unhappy you are and what's going wrong. Start thinking about what's going right. And so when we write on the gratitude journal, we're just writing a few things that have gone right. I love and appreciate this. I'm thankful for this. I have gratitude for this. And things go right. And then you start to build momentum. Things are going right for me. Things are going well for me. I'm the kind of person that things always go right for, and things always work out for me. And you start having a little bit of faith in that, a little bit of trust in that. And lo and behold, that's your reality.
Yeah.
Let's make it happen. And then you make it happen on the bike. I'm the kind of person who's got good instincts in the air. I'm the kind of person who's a good mountain bike jumper. I'm the kind of person who's comfortable in tech. And I'm the kind of person who has excellent body position, who is always in the right place on the bicycle. And that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. But that's absolutely something worth visualizing, absolutely something worth manifesting, absolutely something that you want to maybe even write down and look at. I write down a list of tips, and on my phone, there's a little alarm that pops up at 8:25 on Sundays, so I can look at these tips before wheels out at 8:30.
Oh, that's smart.
And it's actually a very, 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 very long list. I've just added to it over the years. So maybe I'll pull some more podcast topics out of there. So the topic of the week is going to be body position and some of the techniques and tips that we have found to be most impactful in being comfortable riding the bike, getting faster, and progressing.
Yeah.
So should we? I don't know if we want to say from most important, to list it that way, but the one that I have been really focusing on the past few months is, and I've mentioned this in other podcasts, is staying centered, is keeping my weight over the bottom bracket. And I feel like when I remember to do that, it really unlocks a lot of the other tips that you have. I know the natural instinct for us riders is to lean back when things start to get scary.
Yes.
And that just kind of shifts everything in a negative way. And when you're centered, I put a little bit of emphasis on leaning a little bit forward because I just naturally lean back. But you find yourself naturally centered on the bike, right? Or do you have something is that something that you work on?
Oh, geez, Danny. It's something that, no, I don't work on it. No, that is something that I guess instinctually I do. I will say that I try and stay centered on my bike as much as possible, but I'm also a shifty rider. Like I tend to move around on the bike a lot because I work the bike. I work the bike a ton, and I totally agree about the leaning back. I think that's where all of us have kind of fallen victim to that. That's the natural thing to do when you get to a feature and it's a scary feature. Your inclination is like, whoa, I want to push away. I want to push away from this, and that's like the worst thing that you can do. And the reason why, the reason why it's so bad is because if you push back all the way, you've taken away all of your body suspension. And so when things go wrong and you've run out of travel on that bike and you're fully extended out, you're pushed all the way back, there's nothing else to happen except for you to go over the bars, which you and I have done a million times. Whereas if you are centered on your bike, that gives you all the mobility to get around. Whether you're a shifty rider or you're not a shifty rider, if you're centered on the bike, that's going to give you the most mobility to be able to maneuver out of a situation and get the best outcome possible. And I got to tell you, Danny, you are really good at that. Like you are really good at staying centered on your bike. And it's if Carla wasn't proof of that, like I don't know what is. Like you rode that slab Carla at Mount Penn.
You have to specify each time. that is a slab. You can't just call it
Yes.
Carla.
You rode Carla.
You rode Carla. My wife's going to be like, who is that? Oh, who's Carla?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Sage, Ixnay on the Arla-K.
Oh my God. Oh, that was so unintentional. Oh my God, that's so funny. Oh my God.
Thanks.
You rode Carla.
Thanks for blowing my cover.
Lord. Yeah.
You rode Carla. Sage, you were there. Wait a second. You were watching that? Oh, the slide.
Oh, the side.
Yeah. Jeez. Get I want all these webcams out of here right now.
Yeah.
This is getting creepy. My wife's name is not Carla.
Yes. Oh my Lord. Yes. The slab Carla.
Yes.
If
A
you were
slab called
watching
Carla.
A slab called Carla. If you were watching, I will include that video, but my goodness, I don't think I've ever seen anyone ride that so cleanly.
Oh,
Like,
thank you.
That's just one small example, Danny. You've been just on top of your game on all of the features.
It's really just been focusing on that. It's really just been focusing on staying centered. And the one I didn't, which you're going to queue up now, is the one on the Sam Malone Extended where I went over the bars. It's not a great example because it's tough to see that I actually did get too far back. I didn't stay centered. And there's another slab that I did this on in Vietnam, in Massachusetts. There was a really big, long slab. And so what happens is, and listener, if you've ever done a longer slab and you've gotten too far back, this is what can happen. And I highly recommend that you don't do it. But you're too far back. You've lost your suspension, your arms and legs, which is what Sage was just talking about. But you're also so far back that you're unweighted. You get down to the bottom of the slab, and if there's a G out, you're going fast enough that there's a G out. Now your front wheel is unweighted, and you have no steering. So now you've lost steering and you've lost brake control in one of your wheels, and you're going really fast because if you go down a slab that's fast enough to have a G out, then you're going fast at the bottom of it because otherwise it wouldn't be a G out. It would just be a roll. And so I went down a really big long slab in I think it was even on a rainy day, but nonetheless. The guy in front of you and you did it blind. You did it blind, no problem. I just followed you through it, and I went way too far back, and I did lose that front wheel. I lost control, and I ended up hitting a rock, and then I went over the bars. So it's kind of like what you're most scared of ends up happening. We're just talking about this with what vibe you're putting out, right? If you're putting out the vibe of need, you get need. I was putting out the fear of going over the bars, and I went over the bars. So
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. But God.
I was going to say we should probably explain what a G out is. So like the G out is like when you get to if the slab transition is hard. And for what I mean by that is there'll be slabs where it's just a rock down and then there's no transition point between where the slab meets the ground. And so what happens is there's this giant like thud of just force. And it is one of the most uncomfortable feelings that you will ever feel. And you'll hear a lot of mountain bikers say, was there a G out? I'll turn around to Dan. If he rode something first, I'll be like, was there a G out? Or he'll turn around and ask me. And if it is a purposely built slab, a lot of times a builder will kind of put dirt or rocks at the bottom to kind of like take a little bit of that thud out. And when you G out, it's basically your suspension just pretty much collapses underneath you. If you're
using, I don't know. It's just harsh.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I don't know if anybody else
transition from steep to level is very harsh. It's more perpendicular than you would want. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So if you're using, I don't know if anyone else does this, but like if you use the rubber bands on the shocks, like I reset that every ride. When you get a G out, you'll see that rubber band pushed all the way to the top of the shock on the back and the front. Yes, I'm sorry. What did I say?
More the fork. Shock.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah. Well, I do it on both.
So the fork is usually referred to as for the front suspension, and the shock is usually referred as the rear suspension.
Yes. My mistake.
Yeah, I mean, Sage has only been riding for 20 years. I think you learned that one at 21, on the 21-year test. So the tip to stay centered is you just really think about it. Really just think about heavy feet and driving your feet through the bottom bracket. And I tend to lean a little bit forward, get my chin a little bit over the handlebar, because my natural instinct is to go back so much. So if I'm going fast through technical and I'll start to notice that I'm leaning away from the bike. And so I'm consciously trying to lean a little bit more forward than I'm comfortable with. I do that on jumps also, because on jumps I very much start to lean too far back. And that's also very dangerous. There, instead of a G out, you have the landing, and now if you're too far back, you've again lost your arm and leg suspension, and your front wheels is way too light, and you lose control, you lose steering. So it's really dangerous. So I just try that. If you're someone that leans too far back, really think about staying centered and driving your weight straight through the bottom bracket, and then lean forward a little bit uncomfortably. Just lean a little bit forward and see what that feels like. So
I love that tip. Man. I love that tip.
Yeah. So the next one I have, which I know that we're going to debate because this is not something that you do, is to stay low. And then I put / bend the arms and knees. Bend your elbows and knees, bend your arms and legs, because even though you're not a guy who stays low, you are someone who uses a lot of your natural suspension. And I would say when you were talking about how much you move on the bike, I would even say that you're staying centered throughout the range of movement. You do it instinctually, which is so awesome. I'm so envious of staying centered in the bike, no matter where that bike is in the level, within the how many degrees up or down or sideways. Like you're moving to stay centered, right?
That's
You're not shifting your weight into to be too far back or too far forward. Like it's always, that's where the magic is, right? When you're moving around to stay centered.
Yes and no. I mean, I shift the bike more for traction. I'm traction and lines. So I'm looking. One of our tips is going to be looking ahead, but like I'm looking ahead. I'm already thinking about how to attack whatever it is that's in front of me, and so I'm shifting my body to line up that attack point, and also to drive as much traction as I possibly can. And so the part that I think you and I are probably going to debate or disagree with is what you like to call my altitude.
Yes.
But I am very much upright. And I don't mean upright as in terms of like my arms are straight. My arms are never straight, and nor are my legs. My legs are always bent. My arms are always bent. But when you watch Dan, like you hip hinge and you get pretty low. Like you're pretty much in that what they call attack position. And you are really good at that, man. You are really, really good at that. And I don't do that. I tend to stay, as Dan likes to say, my altitude is very high. I tend to stand straight up on my bike. And I think that comes in handy for me.
No, I mean, it works great for you. Like your intuitiveness on tech. Like if I forget to stay centered or to get low, like I have to go through these things in my mind. I can be rusty and kind of forget how to ride a lot of the stuff that we love to do and start to lose confidence. Whereas for you, it's always instinctual, and so I'm very jealous of that. As far as what I'm curious about, what you just said there was that you, as you're approaching something, you think about what you're going to do, how you're going to attack it.
That's right.
Is that like an actual cognitive thought? Like, okay, I'm going to lean here and then do that, or is it just kind of all processing and instinctual?
No, that's exactly right. It is. It's completely instinctual. And I think that's what makes me fast on blind trails. And I think a good example of that was Frederick. We rode that Wayne's trail. Albatross, which I don't have video of, but that Albatross trail, that thing was a double black, super chunk. And,
single black.
And I asked you if it would be okay if I jumped in front. And man, I took off. And you were right behind me. You were following me, but you had said, I probably wouldn't have gone that fast.
Yeah.
Right. And so I guess the brain is kind of processing that very quickly and my body's just naturally moving. But part of that processing is thinking 2 steps ahead. You know, I'm not approaching one object like, oh, and just looking at that. I'm looking at it well in advance, and I'm picking not only that object, but the one that's, you know, next in line as well. So yeah, I did that one. What's the next one coming up? The brain is just constantly moving.
That's really eyes up. Now we're talking about the next one, which is eyes up. So just to finish here with the stay low, I have the stay low is something that I learned. And what Sage is talking about is his instinct and his intuition just takes him this way. And that he's always, since I've met you, you've been a really good downhiller and a really good rider and a really good cornering. You just have that innately. I think that's in the minority. Listener, let us know. Are these things that you work on, or are these things that you just kind of figured out how to do, or are these instinctual? I read a lot of books. I watch a lot of mountain bike YouTube. I listen to podcasts just like you're doing right now and try to get as many of these nuggets as I can. And for me, especially being a tall guy, but for me, staying low is something that you also are lowering your center of gravity, and you're just giving yourself so much more room with your knees and elbows bent to be able to really row the bike, as Lee Likes Bike would say. He does that row and the anti-row. So you're rowing the bike forward, and then the anti-row is you're not really rowing it back. You're just letting it kind of like go under you. If you think about a pump track, think about those bumps or humps, as Sage calls them, and your body's staying still, your body's staying level, and the bike's moving underneath you. So and so if you could, in a perfect world, if you could go down the mountain and the bike is doing all the work, the bike's under you, and your head is like a phantom head floating down the trail, not moving at all. And the bike's just and your bike and your body's just moving all underneath you. And so now your head's up, and you're not getting jostled around, and your eyes are forward. And that's what you were just starting to touch on, is the importance of having your eyes up 1, 2, 3, 4 moves ahead, to let your brain computer, which is super fast, process what needs to be done. But if you're only looking right in front of you, then that's all your brain has time for.
Actually, before we get into that, another reason why I'm so upright is to see far ahead. You know, like I'm a pretty short person. So, you know, if I get down to that really low attack position, and I think the best way that I can describe this, but the best way that I can describe this is your attack position. If I watch you and I look at the videos of you, like your attack position, when you get really into the chunk, like into the heavy stuff, your back is, you know what I mean? Like completely. Yeah. I'm doing this on camera. Like people can see me, but like imagine you're just completely bent over, and you know, you're at almost at like a 90-degree angle, like your back. I mean, it's not, but it's darn close.
Listener, don't imagine me being bent over that much. I don't know what he's talking about. On the bike. No, on the bike. Yes. Good. We have something in here for everybody. We have me with Carla, and we have me being bent over.
Hey now. Oh my goodness. But I find when I do that, when I'm that low, it's really hard for me to.
Have you tried that? I never asked you that, if you've tried getting low.
Yeah, I have tried that, and it doesn't work for me, because I can't push the bike the way I want to push it. You know, if I'm already that low, if my back is bent that low, then my arms are also in a 90-degree angle, and it doesn't allow me to compress the shocks the way that I want to compress a shock, especially with my upper body. Like with the lower body, you could still drive your feet through the features. But for me, if I'm starting up higher, I can really use my arms and compress into the turns, compress into.
It's really interesting.
You know, the different rocks.
Sure.
You know.
Sure.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to explain, but okay, good.
I mean, I don't know. Listener, let us know if you understand what Sage is saying. I think I do. And it's interesting because I've been riding my backyard pump track, which, gratitude, Sean and my wife and the universe for providing that. And every time I ride it, I won't say every time, but I'm just very cognitive of my position and what is helping me. I had it installed last year and then I broke my face almost immediately. So I really didn't get to ride it that much. And now we have all this rain. So I've had some opportunities to ride it, not as much as I'd like to, but I really noticed that to get the really good pump, to really get that like consistent and to be able to speed up. So on the pump track, you're getting low into in between the humps and between the bumps and then you're getting heavy in between and light at the top and then heavy. And so you're using your arms and knees and the higher I go, if I really emphasize, because I'm good at getting low, if I really emphasize getting high at the top and then getting low at the bottom, man, it just like unlocks a ton of speed. And so that's what you're talking about is now you can pump the trail.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, there is some magic in there. There is some magic in there. I'm very jealous that you do that intuitively. Like that's something I have to put a lot of attention into. Listener, let us know. How are you at pump tracks or how are you at pumping the trail? Do you get low? Do you get low enough? I often say to other people that I ride with that ask me for tips, like Stick and Matt, is get low and lower. However low you think you are, it's not that low. Actually, you can actually get a lot lower. Yeah. And it just gives you so much more room for mistakes and to let that bike move underneath you. But if you're confident enough to get high and low and to be pumping features on the trail, not a pump track's easy to pump technical, to pump over rocks and roots and washed out turns and flat turns, to be able to start pumping that sort of thing on the turn. Boy, that's got to feel awesome. That's got to be very magical. And that's why you are such a fast rider, I think, on a lot of these downhills.
Oh, thanks, Danny.
Yes, you're welcome.
I don't know what to say to that.
Would you say, I would say top 17%. I mean, I was... Yeah. As in the intuitive 45 plus rider, you are top 17% in downhills.
I appreciate you niching it down to like 45.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because you're 45 plus. I mean, come on, let's be realistic. But your jumping skills, are like
terrible,
bottom 10%. So we need you to be like well into the 20s on your other skills, which they are. Because but once you unlock jumping, man, I don't want to hear it. You are top 20%. We're making a t-shirt and it says, guess who is top 20%? And the back's going to say, this guy.
Oh my goodness.
Right and left. All right. So eyes up, give your brain computer plenty of time to see what's coming and just see what happens. I mean, if you do nothing else than to have your eyes up, you're going to be faster. You're going to be better. And Sage and I were talking about this afternoon when we started to kind of hash out, this usually we had the subject picked out earlier, but I've been busy and this one just kind of came to me. I wanted to do this one. And we talked about eyes up and Sage, you were like, God, that's like such like the basic mountain bike tip, but it's the best one. It is.
It really is.
Can we get can we get something that we can put on our handlebars that just says eyes up? If something maybe right where I would stare at my tire, like when you spin something, sometimes there can be words on it. Can we make words on the tire that says, get your eyes up? Dope. Stop looking at me. You're looking in the wrong place.
I will say this, Dan. It is handy when we ride together because sometimes I'll just call you out. Like I'll be like, Dan, you don't have your eyes up, and
yes,
that's always helpful. You've said it to me
in a past episode. Yeah.
And that's always handy, when you're riding with somebody. And I need to remind myself. I mean, I will verbally. I remember on the skinnies at Twisted Sister.
Yes.
I noticed I was looking down. I was like, Sage, get your eyes up. And it's like, it's one of those things. Everybody says it. It's in every magazine. It's in every article. It's in every YouTube thing. And it's like, yeah, I get it. Eyes up, eyes up. I still need to be reminded. It's crazy.
Yeah, we still don't do it.
I know.
Yeah, I know. And it's such a great one. I wish I could come up with something really clever that would remind us to do it, or I've gone through so many rides where I'm like 3/4 of the way through the ride, and then like all of a sudden I lift my eyes up and everything slows down and I start riding better, and I'm like, oh, I forgot again. How did this happen? You know, it's just just one of those things, and it really goes back to the same thing with getting too far back on the bike and that fear response of just like staring at what's coming up right in front of us. I think human beings are designed to run at like maybe 18, 20 mile per hour if you're at a full sprint for like 6 or 7 seconds. We're not really designed to bomb down trails on full suspension bikes or any sort of bike, you know, at 30 miles per hour. Like it's just, you just have to like kind of train yourself to do that. So listener, let us know. What are your tips on body position? How would you rank these? What's the most important one? Is it staying centered, staying low, eyes up? The next one that I have is the hip hinge, which I don't know if it's something that you do or not, but it's something that you'll hear a lot in mountain bike videos. And I know Lee Likes Bikes talks about this all the time. He really, and as part of the Ripro, which I purchased one, is to practice that and to get strong in that move. And so if you're squatting and your quads are lighting up, then you're doing it wrong. You want to have your legs bent, but really you're hinging at your hips, and it's more of a hamstring stretch, and you're going to feel it more in your hamstrings than anything else. And it really unlocks a lot of potential especially going downhill. You're going to get tired nowhere near as quickly. You're going to burn your legs out fast if you're in a squat, which is how I rode for a long time. And then I learned how to hip hinge, and I can go a lot longer. You still get tired, of course, but and then it gives you a lot of room in your legs. It gives you a lot of suspension with your legs, and now you're hinged at your hips. And I like to have that nice straight back, as Sage said, and you lock up your core, and your arms are moving, and your legs are moving, and then the bike's moving under you, and then the bike's doing what it's supposed to do because it's centered and the weight is in the right place, and things start to feel really good. So definitely recommend the hip hinge. Not something that you really ever think about, is it?
I don't think I hip hinge. I honestly don't think I hip hinge.
But you don't get tired on downhills either.
No. The only thing that I'll say on a downhill is sometimes after like the first 2 or 3 runs, my hands will hurt because I'll forget to like loosen up my grip. Like usually like when we get to like Mountain Creek or Blue Mountain, the first 2 runs, I'll notice my forearms just start to burn, and I have to be like, oh, what am I doing here? You know, I'm just like, I'm death gripping this thing. And it's like, no. I don't want to say loosen up your grip because obviously you have to grip, but like you don't have to. If your knuckles are white, then you are gripping too hard. Like that's
fear.
You don't need to do that.
Fear.
Yeah, fear.
Yeah.
Yes.
I do it all the time. It's called arm pump when your wrists or your forearms are just killing you. And it happens all the time at the bike park, and because all you're doing is riding downhill. But I absolutely know what you're talking about. So so you do get arm pump, but you don't get really fatigued anywhere else.
And I've heard you complain about your quads burning. Like I've heard you say that, you know?
At the end of Wayne's Trail, like I was in a good hinge, but we had already been riding for a while, and I was trying to keep up with you. And I just lost you at the end of the Wayne's Trail, which is in Frederick Watershed. And you can see Sage put a Trail Sage video out on Wayne's Trail. Well, that was a
FTR.
What do you call those? FTR, Follow the Rider. Yeah. So check out that. And that was really cool. And we did that somewhat recently. We talked about it on the podcast, but check that out. But you can see Sage starts to dust me at the end. My legs just were like shot. I was just done. You know, and I'm like trying to hinge as much as I can, but it's still, my quads were still active and we're still burning out, and it doesn't happen to you. I'm so jealous.
In your defense, like that was a long day. That was the last trail, and it was really long. It was like a 5-minute downhill, and it was all
but guess
rocks.
who didn't get tired? Guess who didn't get tired?
I'm very little.
You.
I'm very little. I'm very little. Yes.
I might move you into the top 16. I'm thinking about top 16 in age bracket downhills. The more pumping. I think about it.
Yeah.
Trail pumping and Carla would agree. I think Carla would agree. You fell right off of Carla.
Yes, I did. Carla was too much for me. She was too much.
She's a fickle lady, Carla.
Yeah, yes, she is. Yes, she is. Let's move into the other thing that made that trail so important, which is bike body separation. And Josh had brought this up. Josh from Slanted Ground had brought this up
Yes.
as one of his top 5 mountain bike skills to advance your riding. And I got to tell you, you and I used the bike body separation a whole ton. Like, I mean, it is such a handy thing. And if you're just getting started riding, I think that's the transition. When you start to get up off of your saddle, you drop that dropper, you get up off of that saddle, and you really start maneuvering that bike underneath you. And that starts with just dropping the dropper and literally standing up and just move that bike side to side, left to right. It's as simple as that. Just move that bike underneath you side to side and then try and incorporate that on the trail. But man, I mean, what do you think of the bike body separation, man?
Oh, absolutely. The thing that I had written down, and it's the same thing, is stay loose. But it's the same thing. It's staying loose allows bike body separation. And so when you're going down the hill or even up, but when you're on a technical section, I think a lot of us have the instinct to squeeze the seat or squeeze the bike. So you've dropped the seat, but you're still kind of like squeezing it. Just let the bike float in between your legs.
Yes,
and
I
so
love
that
that
you're
word.
centered and your elbows are bent and you're low, or maybe you have a high altitude like Sage, but you're in your comfort spot. And then let that bike move under you. Yeah, see what happens. Stay loose. The bikes are so awesome these days. So again, using that image of the head going down the trail and staying level, and the bike just moving, right, going over.
I love that.
And so you're pumping, and I really love what you were talking about as far as pumping in and to get traction. And pumping features in the trail, and pumping even just like pumping down a rock roll that's within the context of the trail. And if you stay centered and you stay loose and you keep your eyes up, then all that stuff is going to start to just kind of magically flow for you. And so when you wake up in the morning and it's ride day, or really when you wake up in the morning and it's not ride day, and you're always dreaming about mountain biking like Sage and I do, and like you probably do if you're listening to this, right? Then this is something that you can be saying to yourself, visualizing, manifesting, right? Visualizing, it means that your body doesn't, your brain doesn't know that you're not riding. So you're just saying things like, and you're visualizing like, yeah, I have great balance on the bike. I stay centered on the bike. My eyes are up. Yeah. And again, these are the same things you take into life. You stay centered in life. You keep your eyes up. You keep looking forward. You don't look in the past. That's done. Whatever happened. Let's move forward and keep flowing. You know, you hit a rock and it was jarring. That's okay. It's over. We're not going to obsess about it. We're going to keep on riding and hit the next one better, and just appreciate what we're doing. Appreciate having fun. Appreciate being flowing. And when you enter into that state of flow, man, that's what we're doing it for. That's what we're here for. And it's super fun. It's super fun. So I got one more. Okay. If we can move on. One more, and this kind of segues into cornering, which will be a different podcast because cornering is a whole different thing. And we mentioned that a few times, but turning your whole body towards where you want to go on the trail.
Ooh, yeah.
So there's bike body separation, and then you're turning your body towards where you want to go. You're turning your belly button, your shoulders, your knees, your hips, any sport that you play, it's always get your hips straight where you want to go. You're shooting basketball, line up your hips. You're running a football, line up your hips. Right? You're firing a skee ball. What is that? Is that a skee ball?
No, skee ball.
Bocce ball? Horseshoes? Why did I run out of sports? These are not sports. These are games. Pinball? Nobody plays pinball sideways. You got to line those hips up. Well, people don't even know what pinball is anymore.
Oh my goodness.
Nintendo? I guess you can play that sideways. Yeah. But listener, you understand the point, is get your hips going where you want to go. Your eyes are looking forward, your hips follow, and the bike is going to flow there better. We'll get more into it in the cornering episode, but that's a just getting your hips and your knees and your shoulders, everything kind of pointing towards where you want to go. So, all right. So we have stay centered. Go ahead. Yes.
Before you move on that one, I do want to point out the hips turning isn't as important if you're in berms. So if you're at a downhill park and you're hitting these berm turns, the hip turn isn't going to be as important because you can press into the berm. But when you're doing a flat turn, and I often have to tell myself to do it because I'll forget to do it.
Yes.
That's when you want to turn. Yeah, that's when you want to turn your hips. You want to maximize your traction. And again, that bike body separation, right? We're talking about leaning the bike, but you're staying upright. And then now you're turning your body so that your hips are facing the exit. It's a really uncomfortable feeling, I have to say. Like when you're first starting, you're going to be like, oh, this feels really awkward and weird. But man, once you get good at it, that's going to really pull you into that, like pull you into the dirt, which is what you want. You want to be pulled into that dirt. You want your momentum to take you outside, you know, get the momentum facing to the exit as quick as possible. And that's why that hip turn is so important. And then again, that bike body separation, just dropping that bike, you stay upright and you're pumping into that flat turn. I mean, it's all about traction. That's cornering is just, it's 100% about traction. That's it, you know, and anything you can do to maximize that, it's going to get you to go faster and faster.
All of this is traction. All of these things are traction, you know, whether or not you're getting heavy in a section on the trail or light so that you can float over a feature or jump over a feature or jump over something. Or you know, you, right before a log over, you get heavy, you right, and then you get real light, so that you can get that bike up over there. And I would say you mentioned the flat turn versus the berm turn, and it's much more important to get the hips around in the flat turn. But I actually think that there's quite a subtle hip turn in the berms as well. The sharper, the longer the berm. And that is a place you can, so if you're someone that rides park or flow trails, like this is still something you can very much use and will start to benefit you and will start to give you more confidence. You get your eyes up and you get those hips pointing towards the exit of that berm. You're going to start feeling better. Engage your core, lock up your core a little bit. That's another pro tip that really kind of helps. I've been using that on the pump track and I keep forgetting. But when you do it, when you start linking all these things together, it's like things start working awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I love it, man.
All right. Well, let's talk about our gratitudes of the week, unless there's something else that you wanted to touch on that I missed in the mountain bike body position. I was thinking we were ready to move on, but okay.
I would like to add, if there is something that we missed, please let us know in the comments. You know, these are just, you know, a few that we thought of, but you know, maybe there's a few others that other people didn't know. So ride and laugh.
Yeah, body position, most important techniques and tips. Comment in the YouTube. Ride and laugh 1 at Gmail. Excellent point, Sage. Yes, please. We want your feedback and any other tips within things. If you have a tip to keep your eyes up, or if you have a tip to stay low, or if you have a tip to stay centered. This is what I do. This is what works. Or if you want us to expand on any of these things that we've been talking about, then go ahead and comment in the YouTube or send us at rideandlaugh1 at Gmail. We're definitely interested, and we love the listener feedback. And our listener feedback's awesome because mountain bikers are awesome. You guys are great, so we appreciate it. Yes. All right. Speaking of gratitude towards our listeners, what is your gratitude of the week?
Man, I got a great one, man. I got a great one. And I've been meaning to shout these guys out for a while, but this week I went out for a road ride and I hit a pothole and my water bottle goes flying out of my cage. And I swear this is just like in the movies. Like as soon as my water bottle left the bike, it hit the road and a car literally runs over it like within seconds and the whole thing explodes. So now
do you think that's the universe telling you that you're not supposed to be road riding? Oh, yeah. That was a warning. That water bottle was a warning shot.
That's right. That's right. Well, that had happened pretty early in my ride. And so by the time I was finishing up, I was absolutely dehydrated. I stopped at the Mainline Cycles, which is my bike shop, and they hooked me up with a bottle. And you know, because I'm not carrying my wallet or nothing. They hooked me up with a bottle, and it just got me thinking like how much they've meant to me and how much they've helped me over the years. I mean, just yeah, the bottle's nice, but man, those guys are they're awesome. They're always taking care of me. You know, they're always taking care of my bikes because you know me, man, we're at Mount Penn all the time. You know, we doing some damage, and I love those guys. Shop.
Yeah,
yeah. So if you are in the mainline area in Philadelphia, definitely check them out. Mainline Cycles, love those guys. Thank you, boys. I appreciate you always taking care of me.
Yeah, you've talked about them several times, and you've always said, you know, with so much gratitude. It sounds to me when you talk to them that they understand mountain bikers and that they.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if they ride mountain bikes themselves, but they definitely get it because you bring your bike in and you need that bike for your next ride on Tuesday and it's Sunday and they throw that thing in the stand, they get it fixed. My shop does the same thing. Keswick Cycles and Paoli, they're awesome. But Mainline has treated you really well, and that's a privately owned shop, right?
Yeah, they have two shops. One's Bike Smith and the other one's Mainline Cycles. So I go to Mainline Cycles, but yeah, they do have one in Philadelphia as well.
Yeah, so that's awesome. So yeah, support your local bike shops, everybody. Bike shops are awesome. They're good people. They're mountain bikers like us, and we love supporting the local businesses. Speaking of local business, my mountain bike gratitude of the week is a little place called Michael's Restaurant, which is off of 422. And this is the diner that we hit after Mount Penn and after French Creek. And anytime that we're up in that area, this is our diner on the way home. And we stop and we know just about every server there. We walk in and they're just like, go ahead and seat yourself. And they don't even give us menus because we already know what we're ordering. And all those servers know what we're ordering. But it's just, and then the owners are these two older Greek people. I think they're Greek, but they're just delightful, so delightful. And they come around and they know us, and we're either known as the mountain bike dads or the muffin guys. We prefer the mountain bike dads.
Yes.
But it's an awesome place, and so I'm shouting out Michael's, and anyone that's listening internationally is like, I'm not. What do I care about this restaurant? But it's not the restaurant; it's wherever we go. And we have other places that we go when we ride other places, but it's the meal after the ride and the friendship. And so it's always you and me. Stick is often in there. And someone else rode with us and they want to come to lunch, they're welcome. But you know, it's what we're talking about now. It's really the birthplace of this podcast are those lunches. And just like talking about the ride and being stoked and talking about bikes and our next bike and where we want to ride and where we're going to go and if we can get a trip together and who's been riding awesome and so I love hanging out with you. I love hanging out with Stick. The friendships just deepening and deepening on the rides, but then also on those lunches afterwards, oftentimes at Michael's Restaurant. So gratitude to Michael's that we have a great place to go. But really, that's my mountain bike gratitude of the week is probably more about friendship and how much I love you guys and how much I appreciate you guys. So,
man, I love it. Mountain bike tip this week is going back to the cornering, which is what we were just talking about. We briefly touched on it, but if you are struggling to figure out how to get your hips around, which is kind of like I said, it's a very awkward position when you first try it. The one tip that really resonated to me was pretend that there is a flashlight attached to your belt buckle or your belly button, like literally a old school flashlight that's just pointing out.
I love this tip. I love this tip.
Yeah. And what you want to do is you want to point that flashlight toward the exit. And that, if you just think of it that way, like, okay, there's a light on my belly button. It's shining forward. How do I get that light to shine toward the exit? That's how you'll turn your hips. It's a really, really good tip that you can like visualize in your head before you even get to it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so handy.
I do it all the time.
Yeah.
The other one that's the next level of that is imagine that there's lights or cameras on your knees and shoulders and your belly button.
Oh.
But so now and so you want to light up the whole trail with those lights, and you know that's really kind of getting everything facing exactly where you want. But start with the flashlight on your belly button, and then you can advance. You can add in some more lights on your shoulders or your knees, imaginary lights.
Maybe imaginary. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. What is coming? I get to see a night rider, like, when another rider stops and they have a light on their helmet and their handlebars, and there's like this monstrosity coming at them, this science fiction character with lights strapped all over them.
On their knees.
Wow.
Oh, goodness.
Did you see that alien corner? That robot was amazing at cornering that flat corner. All right. Well, goodness. If you're still listening, you're definitely one of us. You love mountain biking, and we love you. Thank you so much for listening. Go ahead and rate and subscribe and download and auto download on your podcast player, and leave us a nice review and give us a comment, rideandlaugh1@gmail.com, or comment on the YouTube channel, which is preferable because it helps the algorithm. Tell your friends about us, and we appreciate it. Have a great week, everybody. Ride and laugh.
I'll see you, everyone.